Hello, this is AnlineOffline. Welcome to COD Mobile 102, a casual's guide. And this is everything you might want to know about the VLK Rogue. Introduced in Season 2 of 2025, the VLK is a mag-fed bolt-action shotgun from Modern Warfare 2019. Yes, bolt, not pump action. It's based on the M26 MASS used by the US military. While it can function as a standalone weapon, it's usually an underbarrel attachment like it was for Black Ops 7's Shadow SK Sniper. Historically, America loves its shotguns. Whether it was riding shotgun into manifest destiny, or making the most of claustrophobic environments. However, carrying both a shotgun and a rifle can be cumbersome. With the success of underbarrel launchers, why not an underbarrel shotgun? Jonathan Arthur Senior pioneered the concept, but Knight's Armament popularized the idea with their Master Key, a shortened Remington 870 compatible with the M203 mounting system. Its successor was designed by Ira MK, a former dentist turned optics designer for Seymour Competition. The M26 Modular Accessory Shotgun System, or MASS, is half the weight of the Master Key, and uses box mags that can carry more ammo and reload easier. By no means are underslugs a replacement for a full-size shotgun, as is intended for breaching doors in raids. Not that shotguns are seeing much action against infantry anyways. But as it turns out, the war in Ukraine has proven that dedicated shotguns are currently the most successful method of taking down drones, with both sides doubling down. So how does the M26 fare in Mobile? Base damage per shot is above average for its class, higher than the spam shotguns, but not on the same level as traditional one-shots. The fire rate is also an awkward intermediate at 120 rounds per minute. Each shot is the classic 8 pellets, with 3 in the center and 5 forming an outer radius. Generally, the more pellets you have centered, the better the shotgun is for ADS. The more pellets you have in total, the better it is for hip-firing. If you max out on ADS bloom attachments, you can potentially one-shot up to 28 meters and two-shot anywhere within its max range of 50 meters. If you focus on hip-fire instead, then you can one-shot up to about 8 meters and two-shot around 17 meters. Keep in mind, all of these are under ideal conditions on a perfectly still target, out in the open, and quite a bit of luck on your side. The VLK has an interesting attachment that can increase its fire rate in the form of the XRK ReliaGrip. This was not the case in Modern Warfare, but here in Mobile, it increases your fire rate to 133 rounds per minute. It also helps with ADS spread and recoil, but harms your ADS time and strafe speed. Usually, I don't believe in being an authority on loadout suggestions, as I prefer to provide information for people to draw their own conclusions. But I will say that this is the most useful attachment for any gunsmith regardless of ammo conversions. Speaking of which, the VLK has 2, slugs and Dragon's Breath rounds. By sacrificing all of your pellets in favor of a single slug, the VLK becomes a one-shot kill within its first 3 range values unless you're dealing with a K9, although slugs aren't perfectly accurate. With max range, you can one-shot up to 17.1 meters, but you do have to be considerate of negative leg multipliers in its 3rd range. They are statistically misleading, because these multipliers actually apply to base damage before slugs. So if your first base pellet damage is 34, and your first slug value is 109, you don't actually lose 10% of 109 when going for leg shots. You only lose 10% of 34. The same is true for calculating headshots, which makes no difference either way. The other ammo conversion is Dragon's Breath, and yes, they operate with the same calculations for headshot damage as slugs. The damage of each pellet is reduced by an average of 60%. In exchange, you can inflict burn damage that surpasses its original lethality. Each pellet deals 7 to 10 burn damage 3 times within half a meter. Some people have mislabeled these as thermite rounds, but they do function differently. Thermite rounds have a short delay before their first tick, while Dragon's Breath has no delay. that isn't very noticeable to the human eye. What's more evident is that Dragon's Breath burns twice as fast. Another thing is that you can't stack your thermite damage, as it'll despawn except for the Mana War. The final difference is that Black Jacket and Dauntless have no effect on Dragon's Breath. If you max out ADS Bloom attachments, you can expect 2-shot kills anywhere within 50 meters like in base. Unlike Buckshot, there's a fair chance you can one-shot anywhere within its max range. With a bit of luck and negligence, you only have to land the inner 3 pellets at any range the pull is off. But it's not just dangerous to enemies. On one hand, it also deletes streaks like thermite rounds. On the other hand, it's the fastest way to kill yourself. In terms of mobility, the VLK is solid for its class. The sprint out time is tied with the HSO and Striker for AR level delay. Base movement speeds are tied with the BY-15 and HS2 for the second fastest in its class, only behind the HSO. If you combine the revolt barrel, no stock, and the 4-round mag, the VLK has the 8th fastest sprint speed in the game. It's faster than pistols without underkill, but not as fast as the SMGs and melee. I would not recommend this combo for practical reasons even with overkill. Besides the 4-round mag, your base mag size is the standard 8 for shotguns and can be extended to 12. It's worth noting that the VLK has reduced ammo capacity like the Argus and machine pistol. Thus, instead of 4 mags worth of spare rounds, you only have 3. Due to the fire rate, you'll reload more often than its high damage peers. When empty, you can cancel after fully inserting the mag. With spare rounds, you can cancel before the shells break line of sight. Using any of the mags will somehow bypass the need to inspect your ejection port. As for accuracy, the VLK is solid on paper. Both the base ADS and Hipfire spreads are better than average. The actual iron sights aren't bad themselves. What bothers me is that your arm obscures your vision, which could be problematic with enemies sliding all the time. The default BY-15 model isn't anything to marvel at, but it's much more manageable, especially regarding its very strong recoil. If you're using pre-input bolt action, I strongly advise that you still tap fire your shots when ADS. If you don't land your first shot, switch to your secondary or Hipfire. Do not be like me and try to spam fire with slugs while ADS. It's not worth the ego challenge. So, what was the VLK like in its source game Modern Warfare 2019? Aside from the fast potential movement speed with its 4-round mag, it didn't stand out at first, even after a buff to its range and fire rate. There was very little reason to use it over other shotguns or snake shot. That was until Dragon's Breath was added to the game. Perhaps not as good as Dragon's Breath on the Model 680 or R90, but still respectable in its own right. Maybe it was better in Warzone, but we don't really delve into battle royales on this channel. When the VLK was added to mobile in early 2025, it wasn't that special. If the fire rate is anything to go by, I think they gave us their pre-buff version. I think something that people have been wondering is why is the revolt barrel bugged? Well, at least in Modern Warfare, it's not. Over there, shotguns dealt bonus damage for every 2 pellets connected, so it's not the end of the world for them to have wider spread. But in COD Mobile, we have no such leniency. Not that the BR player base needs it. That's why even though we have the potential for more range due to higher base damage and more attachments for bloom, shotguns are more consistent in the mainline games. The following season, wildcards were finally added to mobile. But if you were going to use a shotgun with overkill, most were using the HSO due to numerous buffs it received prior. In Season 7, its pellets shifted from 2 inner and 6 outer to 3 inner and 5 outer, thus vastly improving Dragon's Breath's consistency at range. Then, Overkill was buffed to improve swap times and provide a speed boost on cooldown. But people started using the Striker with Overkill because of multiple buffs and its new free legendary from the secret cache. 1 year after its release, 2 attachments were buffed. The ReliaGrip was given a faster fire rate and allowed you to recreate its buffed fire rate from Modern Warfare 2019. The choke muzzle now significantly improved pellet spread. So, what are my thoughts on the VLK Rogue after 1 year? I don't dislike it, but I'm not enthusiastic about it. The general sentiment seems mixed. By no means is it a bad weapon, but it's the Arctic 50 of shotguns. Not as spammable as some, but not as hard-hitting as others. There's not much reason to use regular Buckshot. It's mostly valued for an ammo conversion and best used passively. Dragon's Breath is the way to go. Before we can decide how it compares with its peers, we have to decide who are its peers. Again, it's in the middle of the spectrum. I suppose the gun most similar to it in base is the R90. Their bolt times are similar, and they both have potential at long range. The VLK deals more damage per pellet, has the further max range, faster handling, and uses box mags instead of feeding tubes. However, the R9 has more pellets per shot, is much more accurate with said pellets, and dwarfs it in ammo capacity. The biggest difference between the two is that the R9 is a double barrel, so even if their bolt cycle times are indistinguishable to the unaided eye in real time, the R9 has double the output. Regardless of Dragon's Breath, the R9 is much more consistent and forgiving. Since it's only viable in Dragon's Breath, I think the better question is, who does it better, the VLK or the JAK-12? Well, even though they both have Dragon's Breath, they're different. They have the same burn radius, tick delay, and can one-shot within their max ranges. However, the JAK is less lethal. It only burns for 2 ticks instead of 3, and deals half the burn damage than the VLK. Instead of losing pellet damage, it loses half of its outer pellets, so it's more reliant on ADS than Hipfire. And it doesn't help that the JAK deals reduced damage below the ribs. So is the VLK always better than the JAK? Well, it depends on the context. If you're in close quarters or want to finish someone up, then go with the JAK and its fire rate. If you want to play slow, then use the VLK. Then again, why choose between them when you can overkill both? The only other shotgun that can rival the VLK's marksman-like potential is the Argus, which is also guilty of reduced reserve ammo. The Argus has a faster ADS, more rounds per mag, no recoil, and technically more accurate ADS spread against head glitches. However, the VLK only needs 3 pellets to kill compared to all 8 of the Argus at mid and long range. Not to mention, the VLK has double the fire rate and actually has a consistent hipfire spread. The VLK isn't a very popular option in multiplayer, so what's it gonna take for more people to use it? The first order of business is to do something about that recoil. The Echo was another shotgun from Modern Warfare that was gripped from the side and had horrible visual recoil, but was toned down 2 years ago. Why not do the same for the VLK? Maybe then, using slugs wouldn't be such a headache. Second, if Modern Warfare is anything to go by, it wouldn't hurt to have their buffed fire rate. What's the point of guns having reduced reserve ammo? They've already fixed that for the Bruin. The same should be done with the VLK, Machine Pistol, and Argus. This is more of a fix than anything, but the Revolt Barrel's penalties should properly be designated as penalties. It shouldn't have taken over a year to notice this. And lastly, should Dragon's Breath ever prove to be problematic in multiplayer, just make it so that Flak Jacket and Dauntless provide burn resistance like they do for thermite rounds. But hey, that's just my opinion. This has been a Casual's quick guide. Feel free to suggest what weapons you want to see covered next. My name is On, and I'm off.